Hello everyone, this is an in-depth tutorial, very beginner friendly on how to bind your favorite fanfic. I'm doing this one from Manacled and you need very simple materials. The first thing you need is a typeset. A typeset is a document that has been formatted so that when you print it, it turns into a book. If this is the first time that you see a typeset, you might get confused with the way that the pages are, but don't worry, that's how it's meant to be. This one is from Liz. She's great. She's happy to share this for free. Check her Instagram. For this particular video, I am using a different typeset, and this is how it looks like. It has a 2 columns, so it's a Bible style typeset. This particular typeset was made by my friend Lucy. This is her Instagram, check her out. So this is what I mean that the numbers are gonna look funky. They don't go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is totally fine. This is how it's meant to look like. What happens is once you fold these pages together and sew them, it's gonna be fine. Okay, so let's start sewing our signatures. Signature is X amount of pages folded in half, and that's what you sew. And I know this particular typeset has 10 pages per signature. So I'm just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're always going to fold them like that with the consecutive numbers together. In this case, it's 16 and 17. So you just fold them. And I like to tap them towards the top because, again, if you don't have a guillotine, the top is pretty much what you see. So just make sure that that is as straight as possible. So just fold it in half. I'm using my bone folder to flatten that out. If you don't have a bone folder, just use a plastic card. And now when you open it, you will see that all of the pages will be in order. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, blah, blah, blah. And now we're going to be doing this for every single signature. So let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Consecutive numbers are 56, 67. So that's how I know I'm going to fold them. This is a Bible style typeset. It will have a lot less pages than the regular or the typeset you will see, meaning that it will be a lot thinner than most. So this is my previous signature. It ends in 36 and this starts in 37. So that's how I know how am I supposed to place it. Because I never make my typesets. I always get it from someone else because this is too hard. I don't like it. So a lot of creators are more than happy to share their typesets. They would normally tell you how many pages per signature you need, but if they don't, a good way to know how many is just start counting, and you will see here these numbers, like they go like 2 by 2. So 216, 214, 212, 210, 28, 26, 24, 22, 200, 198, and then it changes very drastically to 256, and then 256, 257. So you know that this is the beginning of a new signature. So you only need these pages here. Okay, now that I have all of my signatures folded, it has a lot of air in the corners, so you need to press them before you start sewing them. I'm gonna be using 2 pieces of wood. I already had this, but you can use whatever you have. You just place your signatures in here. Another piece of wood on top. I just put this like so. Just sandwich them vertically to make sure that the gravity helps me to ensure that all of the signatures, they are at the same level. So when I press them, everything will get the same pressure. So I'm just gonna get some clamps. I'm gonna put here on the one side and then clamp it on the other. So you can see now all of that air is getting like pushed out, and I'm just gonna leave this for a couple of hours like that. Now we're gonna be making our hole so that we can sew these together. To make our template, take a piece of paper the same length as your text block, fold it in half. Then on the outer corner, the ones that it's still loose, fold it maybe like 1 finger like thickness, something like that. Fold, and then fold it in half again, like so. So when you unfold it, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dents. And to know where your marks are gonna be, so you're going to be marking the outer dents, exactly where they are, and then the 3 in between, you have to put marks on the sides of it. So if you want to be super precise, maybe just take a ruler, just put it on in the middle of your dent and mark the sides. Another one here, 1, 2, and that's the final dent. 2. Another option is just put 2 fingers and mark on the sides. Now you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 marks, and that's where you're gonna be making the holes. I'm gonna press them again, but what I'm gonna be doing is, instead of them to be right on the edge of my press, I'm just gonna take them out a little bit and clamp it. So now you have a bit of an overhang in here, which is what you want. Place your template on top. You're gonna mark where those little marks are. Just on one signature, that's enough. Now we're going to cut across the signatures to make our holes. You can potentially use an owl, something like this, and you can punch each signature individually, but I feel this is so much faster, so I prefer to do it this way. So you just have to be very careful. So just take a knife, a cutting knife, place your ruler where that mark is, and this just has to sit straight at the bottom. Make sure that your fingers are always behind the ruler so you don't cut yourself, and then you just put away. Now the more pages your signature has, the deeper you need to cut, so just make sure that you really get in there so that the page that it's at the very end will also get cut. And repeat the process for each one of your marks. I can take this out of my press, and now I can start sewing them. To sew our signatures, we're going to be using regular thread, and you can either use it by itself, but I'm going to be waxing them. So normally you can use beeswax, that's what's normally used. I just have a regular old candle, so I'm just running that across the candle. Carefully, it doesn't get tangled. And a good way to know how much thread you need is to count your signatures. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And a little bit more. So that's how much I'm going to be using. The only thing I would say is when you use this much thread, it is more likely that it will get tangled. So I'm going to show you in a minute a way of how you can use smaller pieces of thread and just add on if you need more. I'm just going to run this by my needle. Any needle will do. This is a special bookbinding needle, but any needle would do. The trick is the head needs to be just as thick as the rest of the body, because otherwise you're going to punch this into your signature, and then if the head is larger, it's gonna make your hole bigger. Okay, so we're gonna put this in. So put your thread, the needle, and a good trick is take the smaller piece of your thread, and with your needle you're just gonna punch right in the middle of your thread, just in between, so that it goes through, you see, and then pull it through, and this way you're never going to be losing your needle, which is really good. Okay, so now we're going to be sewing our signatures, and I like to place something so that it gives me a bit of height, because you're going to have to go in and out, so just a little bit of height is better. Okay, so to sew this, we're going to be using a French stitch. So to do that, place your first signature. This is my last one of my book. Open it in half and place something heavy on top. So now we're going to be going through the first hole. Put your needle in, and then go out on the other one. You can totally do this without like wax thread, but the thing is, if it's wax, then it's less likely that it will get tangled. So just keep that in mind. And out. And you tighten this. So to tighten your thread, you always tie it parallel to your book, because if you tighten like this, you're gonna break it. So now that's nice and tight. That's the inside, and that's the outside. So we take this out, and now we're gonna place our next signature on top. So again, what I like to do, because I just like to double check everything, this is page 465. This is my next signature, so 464, which is perfect. And we put this on top, Lay something heavy. And now, so this is where my thread is on the outside, so we're gonna go in again. Then out. Okay, so you tighten that really well. Now, instead of going to the next one, you're going to take your needle and you're gonna run it below or behind or underneath, whatever the right terminology is, the previous thread. So just run it under it. So now that it's under, then I can go in again on the other hole. Okay, go in again. Okay, we're gonna tighten that. So again, pulling towards that side. Again, put your needle underneath the other thread, the one below, and in. And you will start seeing how these little X's are made. So this is what you will be doing pretty much for the rest of your book. And the final go in. And just tighten that really well, and with the thread underneath you're just gonna make a regular knot. And I like to do like 2 or 3 just for good measure. Now this is the third signature, so it's 428 and the other page is 429, so I know I'm doing that correctly. Just place it on top and repeat the same process. Just go into the first hole, out. From this time going forward, when you go below, make sure that you don't go below the whole thing. It only has to go below the previous thread, so from the previous signature. So I can do either this, so you can see it's only this one but not the one below, or just do it in here, so again the one on top but not the one below. And now we can go in again. Now for the last one, you're taking your thread out. You're gonna take your needle and you're gonna put it one signature below. Put it through, and then your thread needs to go on the other side. So this way you're creating a loop and basically a knot. So this is called a kettle stitch. So all of the outer stitches are going to be done like that. Here it is on the other side. Place something heavy on top. Tighten that. Needle under the previous signature. And you continue doing the same for every signature that you have. I've now run out of thread and I still have another signature to add. So the way you add more thread, take your new piece and just do the same. Just put it through your needle. And then on the other side, there's a proper knot, but I keep forgetting it. So this is what I do instead, and apparently it's a crochet knot. So what you do is your new piece of thread, make a loop. So you have this little loopy thing. Take the remaining thread and just put it through that loop. And close it. Make sure that it's really tight. And then take both the smaller bits and make another knot. These are your 2 smaller pieces. So now when you take the other one, just test it so that it doesn't slide and it's nice and tight. Remove the excess. And that's it, and you can continue with your work. This is the last signatures and the last knot. So you go out the last hole, tighten that, make sure that everything's nice and aligned, and then do your final kettle stitch. So again, this is my last signature, so I'm just gonna run it to the under the one below. And I also like to do like 2 or 3 final knots just for good measure. You cut it, and that's it. You finally have your text block all nice and sewn together. Now that everything's done, we're gonna be gluing the spine, and we're gonna be making a straight spine because that's the most beginner friendly one, I think. Going to press your book And we're going to be doing the same thing as before, where we just put it vertically with everything touching your table or whatever surface is underneath, so that your signatures, look, I don't know if you can see them, they're as straight as possible. I use Kids PVA glue because it's acid free, so that's what you want. Any PVA glue that is acid free. I mean, obviously you can get like proper bookbinding glue, but this is way more affordable and it's just more accessible for most people. I'm gonna be adding a lot of glue to the spine. Now I have a lot of glue, you can add more. So this is Bookbinder's Mole, and just add it in to strengthen the spine. If you don't have this available, you can use regular fabric. So as long as it's not too stretchy, it will be fine. I personally like to repurpose old cotton shirts. I used to use one for my husband, but I already finished it because I made a lot of binds. But this is just random fabric that I had laying around, so this will work just as well. Okay, so this is good enough, and it needs to be a little bit shorter than your actual text block. So I'm just gonna put this in here, and I will be adding more glue on top. Some people like to use cheesecloth instead, so you can try that. I personally don't like it. I feel cheesecloth is just like just a few strings. I don't think it adds more support. Just a personal preference. I don't like it, but I know a lot of people do use it, so just keep that in mind. And that's it. Now I'm just gonna let it dry overnight. I now have my text block ready to be cut. Now, if you don't have a guillotine, honestly, just leave it like that. A lot of people try to cut it with an X-Acto knife afterwards, but it never turns out good. It's so much work, and to be honest, like it's not bad, you know. Like you have this is what we call deckled edges. They're fine, but I have it. So what I normally like to do, if you have one, I like to keep it the same size as my regular book, so that when I put it on the shelves, everything's the same size. Now, this particular typeset though, so if I cut it the same width as this one, it will be right on the edge, so we don't want that. So I'm just gonna cut it a little bit further away. And then for the height, I can actually use the same height as my regular books, and that's even better. That's probably what matters, because then when you put them in the shelf, it's the same height, and the width is probably not as important. I probably wanna cut this somewhere here. And now I'm just gonna take a piece of paper and just fold it a couple of times. You can use any waste paper, because you're gonna place this on top, and so that when your guillotine crushes this, it might damage your paper a little bit, so it will damage these bits instead of your text block. So this is all nice and smooth. I'm gonna do the top first, and I'm just gonna cut a little bit, not too much, because that's where I have the least space. I'm gonna take some of that paper that I just cut, and then what I do is I just take the blade all the way down, place my book, make this thing, take this outside, put this back in. And there you go. I forgot to add my end papers before I cut it, so we're gonna be doing that now. This is wrapping paper. The only thing you need to make sure is the grain direction needs to go like that. So because the grain direction of my paper also goes like this goes like that, this is going to be attached to your boards that also need to go like that, their grain direction, because if you don't, then it's gonna warp. I'm gonna fold it in half. And my camera stopped recording, so this is what you do. You just put glue on all of the edge of your spine, place your end paper on top. A lot of people like to leave an overhang of like 2 millimeters like this one. That helps for your book to open nicer, and then I just cut the excess off of my end papers. Now I'm going to be creating my headbands. The headbands are the things that you place at the top and bottom of your spine to protect it. So you can just use regular book cloth. This is just scrap book cloth that I have, but regular fabric would also work. And I'm just grabbing a piece of twine that is slightly larger than my scrap book cloth or fabric. And I am securing that with some tape at the end so that it doesn't move. This is one that I already made for reference. So you just need to add a lot of glue to both the twine and I guess the rest of your fabric or book cloth, and then just fold it in half and let it dry, and that's it. Once it is dry, you cut it to size and just apply glue to the top and bottom of your spine, and then just glue your headbands and let them dry.
For my boards, I like to repurpose old ring binders, like this one or this one. This is the cardboard that was inside one of those white old ring binders. My neighbor actually threw them away and I rescued them, and I just removed the white bits and I kept the cardboard.
So to know the size, I like for my cover to have the same width as my text block. In this case is 13.7 centimeters. And then for the height, the text block is 19.8. And I add an additional 6 millimeters, so it's going to be 20.4. So now that it's cut and I put it on top of my text block, I can see that it is the same width and the height is a little bit larger, so I have 3 millimeters extra at the top and then 3 millimeters extra at the bottom. And the reason why I like to have my width the same as my text block is because when I case it in, I will have a hinge, and that hinge is going to add an additional extra millimeter, so it's going to be pushed out a little bit. And that will give you that extra overhang at the end.
For your spine piece, I'd like to do the width of my case plus the covers. So in this case, 3.4 centimeters.
And I do measure the width but not the height, because the height is pretty much the same as my cover, so I just use that as my template.
For the spine, I usually like to use a thinner piece of cardboard. A cereal box is great, but if you're starting, a thicker piece will probably be easier. So I have this piece of paper. I really like to use paper bags for this. This is one way to do your case, and I think this method is really is beginner friendly, because if you mess up with your measurements, you can always do a dry fit before you actually cover everything. So I'm going to apply some glue to my spine. Put that in here. And I'm just going to smooth it with my bone folder. Good, now you turn it around, and I'm gonna do a 8 millimeter gap, just because that's what I like. If you're starting, maybe use 1, because I feel 1 it's a little bit more forgiving, but I'm gonna do 8.
So you just measure from the edge of your spine and just join the dots together to create a straight line.
Just gonna put some waste paper below. So I'm gonna apply glue to this side. We'll apply one of my boards. So you place your ruler underneath just to make sure that everything's straight, and then place your board. And you do the same thing on the other side. Take your bone folder and just smooth everything. Mark those hinges. I have this piece of fabric. This is faux leather that I got at the fabric store, so I'm going to be using this for my spine. And I know my spine is 3.4 centimeters, and then I want this fabric to go a little bit over the cover, probably like maybe like 1.5 centimeters. So I'll be doing 7 centimeters. Before I start wrapping everything to my covers, this is the time to make sure that you did everything correctly and do a dry fit, which is why I like this method, especially if you're a beginner. So you place your text block, and you can see I have even spaces everywhere, so I'm good to go. Now I will be gluing my piece of leather. I need another magazine underneath, and I will be adding my glue. And you need to add glue to the side where your covers are completely exposed, because that's where you're going to be adding the hinges. And I need to add more to the sides, because I want it attached to the sides as well. This is, since this is the middle. Now, if you were using regular book cloth, this would be a lot easier, but because I don't have it, it just takes a little bit longer for the fabric to stick. So what I like to do to make sure that my hinges are really nice and crisp, is work it with your fingers a little bit, but also you may want to have to leave it to dry for a little bit longer. So what I like to do is, I recently got these needles and I just place them on top. You can also use chopsticks if you want, if you don't have this. Put it like this on the hinges. I'm just gonna place this on top. I'm just gonna put something really heavy on top and I'm gonna let it dry. You could totally skip this, but I swear this makes sure that you have a nicer result.
While that dries, I'm gonna print my cover. So this design, I made it myself and I made it available for free for anyone who wants to use it. The link is down below. So I just printed that on cardstock and I put some toner reactive foil on top of it. This is actually quite cheap. It's available on Amazon or Temu, and what you do is you laminate it and the foil is going to adhere to the toner bits. And yeah, this is what it looks like. It's actually very easy and a very affordable and accessible way to create like sparkling cover designs with just a printer and the foil thing. If you don't have a carrier sheet like the one I show you, just put some paper on top to protect the foil and laminate as usual. I do feel I get a nicer result with the carrier sheet, but I could totally be wrong and biased. I don't know, but yeah, this is how it looks like with just the paper on top. Okay, so I initially selected a different design, as you can see, so let's ignore that. Let's pretend that there's nothing in there. And what I do is I just align my design to the cover because I need to remove that extra bit because obviously the paper is larger than my actual cover. And I do the exact same thing on the back, making sure that I do it on the right hand side because that's where my spine is going to be. This is contact paper, like the thing that you use for school. This is not necessary. I like to add this additional protection because I am very messy and I'm always spilling things, so I do this. So I just cut it to size and apply it to my covers. The trick here is to make sure that you don't have any bubbles, so use a bond folder or a plastic card, whatever you have at hand, to make sure that you remove all of the air and remove the extra bits and pieces.
So that's what your design would look like just with the contact paper. So it's a little bit hazy, which is why I like to put it through the laminator. So you need a carrier sheet. If you do not have a carrier sheet, do a test first because not every single contact paper is the same. So if you use a carrier sheet, any contact paper will work. If not, do a test because it might melt. So if you don't have a carrier sheet, maybe don't do this and just use the foil and the paper on top and that's it. And this is what it looks like. So this has been laminated, so it's a little bit smoother, and then this one hasn't been laminated just yet, so you can see it's a little bit hazy, which is why I like to do this.
And now it's time to add glue to your cover so that you can glue your papers. Just add a tiny bit of glue at the very edge of the fabric and place your covers on top like so.
So I forgot to film this, but let's assume that this is my paper, right? And I have quite a big of a gap here. So I take my ruler and I like to use the thickness of the ruler. So I just put this in here and I cut it. And I do the same at the top. And this is how much I like to have so that then I can grab it.
Now to cut your corners, what you do is you bend your corner into a 90-degree angle. And this is going to give you a dent in here, so that's the angle that you will need to cut your corner. So take your ruler and don't cut it exactly on the line, just pull it a little bit outwards, okay, because otherwise if you do, then the cardboard underneath is going to show. So just put that a little bit above the line and cut. And now we're gonna wrap it. We do top and bottom first and then the sides. So add your glue to the top or bottom, and I have already glued the spine, by the way, and start wrapping it. Now if you have used the contact paper, it will be a little bit harder to bend as opposed if you just were using regular paper, but just use your bond folder and it will stick perfectly fine. Another benefit of using plastic is that if you get glue on your paper, it's very easy to wipe off. And now we're going to be doing the sides or the forage, so let's just apply a little bit of glue. And always apply your glue with outward motions, like to the outside, because otherwise if you do it inside, the glue might seep in and you're gonna mess your cover. Before you fold your corners, to make sure that they're really nice and crisp, just make sure that you really fold or like push that excess bit of paper that is just hanging on both sides, and then you can fold it. And you can use it straight away and case in your text block, but I like to leave it to dry. This is almost dry now. You can see a bit of a stain there, but that's okay. That's gonna go away, and now we can case it in. Before I do that, I do one last dry fit just to make sure that everything's aligned. I messed that up a little bit, but okay, that's fine. It looks good. So yeah, I'm just going to put some waste paper, just a magazine page. Make sure you put that in between your end papers and start adding your glue again with those strokes, making sure they go outwards and no inwards. Remove that waste magazine page. Because it has that plastic lining, I'm gonna give a scuff sand to the edges just to make sure that it has a little bit of texture, and that will help my glue to stick rather than if it was just smooth plastic. So now you grab your end papers, and then with your 3 fingers at the bottom, you're just gonna place them on your text block to give you some purchase and close your cover. Once closed, what I like to do is just see on the edges, just make sure that everything's straight and that the space is almost the same everywhere. Once done, just add some plastic in between your end papers to make sure that they don't get wrinkled, and do the same on the other side. So just add your glue, close your cover, case it in, and that's it. Add your plastic. You're going to be doing a final press, so again just place that on your boards, and to make sure that you have nice crisp edges, I like to place once again those super needles on the edge and press it in, and that actually makes sure that you have really nice crisp hinges. So yeah, just press it again, leave it overnight, and the next day you will be able to find your brand new book. And this is the final result. I think this is beginner friendly. I made this tutorial because it is illegal to buy this for profit, so it's very important if you want it to know how to bind it, which is why I made this. So I hope you like it. If you don't have a laminator, just print it. Just print it on your paper and just use the black printout, and it will still look good. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel as well as my TikTok and Instagram. I will be making more videos just with a very beginner friendly approach, so hopefully it's useful for most people, and I will see you in my next video.